Hey, squirrel listeners, believe it or not, this is take two because I was about to fall asleep the first time. I'll probably do it again, but I'll muddle through and do as much as I can. I should have took a little nap before I came in here, and I'd be doggone if I didn't leave my water jug over there. Anyway, we'll be dry-mouthed and sleepy, but we'll give her a shot. We're still on Anne of Windy Poplars. But it's divided up into years. Year 1, year 2, year 3. And we just started on year 2. And this is chapter 2 of that. And if you're new, I have the first Anne book in the series, which was Anne of Green Gables. I've got playlists for all the books I've read, so you can just hit play all and listen to your heart's content while you crochet, knit, loom, spin, whatever it is you do. Okay, that was just for the new folk. Chapter 2. The Dawlish Road was a meandering sort of road, and the afternoon was made for wanderers, or so Anne and Lewis thought as they prowled along it, now and then pausing to enjoy a sudden sapphire glimpse of the strait through the trees, or to snap a particularly lovely bit of scenery or picturesque little house in a leafy hollow. It was not perhaps quite so pleasant to call at the houses themselves and ask for subscriptions for the benefit of the dramatic club, but Anne and Lewis took turns doing the talking, he taking on the women while Anne manipulated the men. Take them in if you're going in that dress and hat, Rebecca Dew had advised. I've had a good bit of experience in canvassing in my day, and it all went to show that the better dressed and better looking you are, the more money or promise of it you'll get. If it's the men you have to tackle, but if it's the women, put on the oldest and ugliest thing you have. Isn't a road an interesting thing, Lewis, said Anne dreamily. Not a straight road, but one with ends and kinks around which anything of beauty and surprise may be lurking. I've always loved bends in the roads. Where does this Dawlish Road go to? Asked Lewis practically, though at the same moment he was reflecting that Miss Shirley's voice always made him think of spring. I might be horrid and school-teacherish, Lewis, and say that it doesn't go anywhere, it stays right here. But I won't. As to where it goes or leads to, who cares? To the end of the world and back, perhaps. Remember what Emerson says, oh, what have I to do with time? That's our motto for today. I expect the universe will muddle on if we let it alone for a while. Look at those cloud shadows and that tranquility of green valleys and that house with an apple tree at each of its corners. Imagine it in spring. This is one of the days people feel alive, and every wind of the world is a sister. I'm glad there are so many clumps of spice ferns along the road. Oh, I'm so dry. Spice ferns with gossamer webs on them. It brings back the days when I pretended or believed, I think I really did believe, that gossamer webs were fairies' tablecloths. They found a wayside spring in a golden hollow and sat down on a moss that seemed made of tiny ferns to drink from a cup that Lewis twisted out of birch bark. You never know the real joy of drinking till you're dry with thirst and find water, he said. That summer I worked out west on the railroad they were building. I got lost on the prairie one hot day and wandered for hours. I thought I'd die of thirst, and then I came to a settler's shack, and he had a little spring like this in a clump of willows. How I drank! I've understood the Bible and its love of good water better ever since. We're going to get some water from another quarter, said Anne rather anxiously. There's a shower coming up, and, Lewis, I love showers, but I've got on my best hat and my second best dress, and there isn't a house within half a mile. There's an old deserted blacksmith forge over there, said Lewis, but we'll have to run for it. Run they did, and from its shelter enjoyed the shower as they had enjoyed everything else on that carefree gypsying afternoon. A veiled hush had fallen over the world. All the young breezes had been whispering and rustling. So importantly, along the Dawlish Road, all the had folded their wings and become motionless and soundless. Not a leaf stirred, not a shadow flickered. The maple leaves at the bend of the road turned wrong side out until the trees looked as if they were turning pale from fear. A huge cool shadow seemed to engulf them like a green wave. The cloud had reached them, then the rain with a rush and sweep of wind. The shower pattered sharply down on the leaves. Sorry if you can hear a little clicking of my mouth. I think I might have to go get my water bottle. The shower pattered sharply down the leaves, danced along the smoking red road, and pelted the roof of the old forge right merrily. "If this lasts," said Lewis, but it didn't. As suddenly as it had come up, it was over and the sun was shining on the wet, glistening trees. Dazzling glimpses of blue sky appeared between the torn white clouds. Far away they could see a hill still dim with rain, but below them the cup of the valley seemed to brim over with peach-tinted mist. The woods around were pranked out with a sparkle and glitter of springtime. Go on. And a bird began to sing in the big maple over the forge as if he were cheated into believing it really was springtime. So amazingly fresh and sweet did the world seem all at once. I gotta go get water. Sorry. Oh, y'all watch me struggle to get out of the chair. It's a struggle with these knees and feet and ankles. Ah. It sure is a struggle. Oh, a possum's about to fall down back there. Okay, I'll be back. Beware of the blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. I watched The Blob the other night and I cannot get that silly song out of my mind. Oh my gosh. Tearing everything up. Here's Diego. He came out of hiding. Oh Lordy. Fix that later. Just put a fresh cartridge in my circle bottle and it's lovely. Okay, let's see where we are. "Let's explore this," said Anne when they resumed their tramp, looking along a little side road running between old rail fences smothered in goldenrod. "I don't think there's anybody living along that road," said Lewis doubtfully. "I think it's only a road turning down to the harbor." "Never mind, let's go along it. I've always had a weakness for side roads. Something off the beaten track, lost and green and lonely. Smell the wet grass, Lewis. Besides, I feel in my bones that there is a house on it. A certain kind of house. A very snappable house." I don't know what that means. Oh, I messed up my view there. To get my sign in. Or most of it. Everybody's chatting away. My daughters. Youngest must have just finished something. Knitted. Okay, never mind. A certain kind of snappable. Anne's bones did not deceive her. Soon there was a house, and a snappable house to boot. It was a quaint, old-fashioned one. Low in the eaves with square, small-paned windows. Big willows stretched patriarchal arms over it, and an apparent wilderness of perennials and shrubs crowded all about it. It was weather gray and shabby, but in the big barns beyond it were snug and prosperous looking, up to date in every respect. I've always heard, Miss Shirley, that when a man's barns are better than his house, it's a sign that his income exceeds his expenditure, said Louis, as they sauntered up the deep-rutted grassy lane. I should think it was a sign that he thought more of his horses than of his family, laughed Anne. I'm not expecting a subscription to our club here, but that's the most likely house for a prize contest I've encountered yet. Its grayness won't matter in a photograph. This lane doesn't look as if it were much traveled, said Louis with a shrug. Evidently the folks who live here aren't strongly sociable. I'm afraid we'll find they don't even know what a dramatic club is. Anyhow, I'm going to secure my picture before we rouse any of them from their lair. The house seemed deserted, but after a picture was taken, they opened a little white gate, crossed the yard, and knocked on a faded blue kitchen door. The front door, evidently being like that of Windy Poplars, more for show than for use. If a door literally hidden in Virginia creeper could be said to be for show, they expected at least the civility which they had hitherto met in their calls, whether backed up with generosity or not. Consequently, they were decidedly taken aback when the door was jerked open, and on the threshold appeared not the smiling farmer's wife or daughter they had expected to see, but a tall, broad-shouldered man of 50 with grizzled hair and bushy eyebrows, who demanded unceremoniously, "What do you want?" "We have called, hoping to interest you in our high school dramatic club," began Anne rather lamely, but she was spared further effort. "Never heard of it. Don't want to hear about it. Nothing to do with it," was the uncompromising interruption, and the door was promptly shut in their faces. "I believe we've been snubbed," said Anne as they walked away. "Nice, amiable gentleman, that," grinned Louis. "I'm sorry for his wife, if he has one." "I don't think he can have one, or she would civilize him a trifle," said Anne, trying to recover her shattered pose. "I wish Andrew had the handling of him, but we've got his house at least, and I've a premonition that it's going to win the prize. Bother, I've just got a pebble in my shoe, and I'm going to sit down on my gentleman's stone dike, with or without his permission, and remove it. Luckily, it's out of sight of the house," said Louis. Anne had just retired her shoelace when they heard something pushing softly through the jungle of shrubbery on their right. Then a small boy about 8 years of age came into view and stood surveying them bashfully, with a big apple turnover clasped tightly in his chubby hands. He was a pretty child and with glossy brown curls, big trustful brown eyes, and delicately modeled features. There was an air of refinement about him, in spite of the fact that he was bareheaded and bare-legged, with only a faded blue cotton shirt and a pair of threadbare velvet knickerbockers between head and legs. But he looked like a small prince in disguise. Just behind him was a big black Newfoundland dog whose head was almost at level with the lad's shoulder. Anne looked at him with a smile that always won children's hearts. "Hello, Sonny," said Louis. "Who belongs to you?" The boy came forward with an unanswering smile, holding out his turnover. "This is for you to eat," he said shyly. "Dad made it for me, but I'd rather give it to you. I've got lots to eat." Louis, rather tactlessly, was on the point of refusing to take the little chap's snack, but Anne gave him a quick nudge. "Take the hint." He accepted it gravely and handed it to Anne, who quite as gravely broke it in two and gave half of it back to him. They knew they must eat it and had painful doubts as to Dad's ability in the cookie line, but the first mouthful reassured them. Dad might not be strong on courtesy, but he could certainly make turnovers. "This is delicious," said Anne. "What's your name, dear?" Hang on a sec. Okay. "Teddy Armstrong," said the small benefactor, "but Dad always calls me little fella. I'm all he has, you know. Dad's awful fond of me, and I'm awful fond of Dad. I'm afraid you think my dad is impolite because he shut that door so quick, but he doesn't mean to be. I heard you asking for something to eat." "We didn't, but it doesn't matter," thought Anne. "I was in the garden behind the hollyhocks, so I just thought I'd bring you my turnover, 'cause I'm always so sorry for poor people." Poor people who haven't plenty to eat. I have always. My dad's a splendid cook. You ought to see the rice puddings he can make. "Does he put raisins in them?" asked Louis with a twinkle. "Lots and lots. There's nothing mean about my dad." "Haven't you a mother, darling?" asked Anne. "No, my mother is dead. Mrs. Merrill told me once she'd gone to heaven, but my dad says there's no such place, and I guess he ought to know. My dad is an awful wise man. He reads thousands of books. I mean to be just exactly like him when I grow up, only I'll always give people things to eat when they want them. My dad isn't very fond of people, you know, but he's awful good to me. "Do you go to school?" asked Louis. "No, my dad teaches me at home. The trustees told him I'd have to go next year, though. I think I'd like to go to school and have some other boys to play with. Of course, I've got Carlo, and Dad himself is splendid to play with, but when he has time. My dad is pretty busy, you know. He has to run the farm." Messed things up. "He has to run the farm and keep the house clean. That's why I can't be bothered having people around, you see. When I get bigger, I'll be able to help him lots and lots. He'll have more time to be polite to folks." "That turnover was just about right, little fellow," said Louis, swallowing the last crumb. The little fellow's eyes beamed. "I'm so glad you liked it," he said. "Would you like to have your picture taken?" said Anne, feeling that it would never do to offer this generous small soul money. "If you would, Louis will take it." "Oh, wouldn't I?" said the little fellow eagerly. Carlo too?" "Certainly Carlo too." Anne posed the two prettily before a background of shrubs. The little lad standing with his arm around his big curly playmate's neck. Both dog and boy seeming equally well pleased, and Louis took the picture with his last remaining plate. "If it comes out well, we'll send you one by mail," he promised. "How shall I address it?" "Teddy Armstrong, care of Mr. James Armstrong, Glen Cove Road," said the little fellows. "Oh, won't it be fun to have something coming to me myself through the post office? I'll tell you." Let's see, hang on. My eyes are going shut. Oh, won't it be fun to have something coming to me myself through the post office? I tell you, I feel awful proud. I won't say a word to Dad about it, so that'll be a splendid surprise to him. Well, look out for your parcel in 2 or 3 weeks, said Louis, as they both bade him goodbye. But Anne suddenly stooped and kissed the little sunburned face. There was something about it that tugged at her heart. He was so sweet, so gallant, so motherless. They looked back at him before a curve in the lane had saw him standing on the dike with his tail, oh God, with the, hang on, standing on the dike with his dog, waving his hand to them. God, about done. Of course, Rebecca Dew knew all about the Armstrongs. James Armstrong has never got over his wife's death 5 years ago, she said. He wasn't so bad before that. Agreeable enough, though a bit of a hermit. Kind of built that way. He was just wrapped up in his bit of a wife. She was 20 years younger than he was. Her death was an awful shock to him. Awful shock to him, I've heard. Just seemed to change his nature completely. He got sour and cranky, wouldn't even get a housekeeper, looked after his house and child himself. He kept bachelor's hall for years before he was married, so he ain't a bad hand at it. But it's no life for a child, said Aunt Chatty. His father never takes him to church or anywhere he'd see people. He worships the boy, I've heard, said Aunt Kate. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, quoteth Rebecca Dew suddenly. And that's all, thank goodness, chapter 2. I hope I didn't do too bad. I know it's torturous sometimes when I am so sleepy, slur my words, and then I was so dry, the clicking noise in my mouth. It was like the desert, the Mojave Desert. Well, I think it's Monday. I think it's the 14th. 14th, 15th, 16th. Yep, 17th on Thursday. And that's when we draw for the Harvest Moon giveaway. So make sure you enter mine and anybody else's you want to. I've got a nice little gift for the person I draw on the 17th. And then we'll send that name over to Hoss at Off Kilter Homestead. And he'll do a big draw, the big draw, on October the 1st. Whoever wins that one gets prizes from all of us that participated. And I'm doing washcloths for my prizes for that. So, thank you, Karen Bambera Robinson, for donating the way cute scarecrow and just fall-themed bag. And then I'm putting some little goodies in there. But for the prize, the big prize winner, I'm going to do as many washcloths as I can between now and then. My eyes are like slits. So anyway, I hope to see y'all live at 5 today. I may even try StreamYard. Who knows? Love ya. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. Bye.